Good evening, everybody. Welcome along. It is time for another Inspire and Be Inspired, our weekly motivational conversations and occasional life hacks. If it's the first time you join us, my name is Adhd, and it's a pleasure to have your company. I'm going to start before I bring my guest on today by saying thank you to one or two people that I saw out and about recently over at the amazing Southport Weekender. I was quite surprised actually how many people did stop me in my tracks and said how much they enjoy these videos. They don't always get to watch it live, but they do come back and check out the recordings. So if you were one of those people, I want to say thank you. And if you've recently been turned onto the channel, make sure you go back and check out all of the previous conversations. Let me explain to you the screen. As you can see it, some new graphics. We've got the spinning Inspire logo. We've got my YouTube link. We have the Inspire and Be Inspired link as well. Head on over to YouTube and subscribe to me so you can see every time I load a new graphic. You can also see one or two sponsor logos from my Access program, which I'll discuss at the end of the show. And you can see a little graphic in the bottom right hand corner on today's topic. It says trauma. What is it and how it manifests itself? Please leave a comment as you're watching. I'll do my very best to come to you while there is a break in the conversation, and any links or any shares of the video really does help get into the line of sight of more viewers, and because it is quite an important topic, I would really enjoy it if you could help out. So thank you very much. I can see Stu Miller has just jumped onto the stream and he's now following us. How you going, my friend? And Cliff Williams says, good evening. Hi, Cliff. Anybody else, please feel free to leave a comment. Andy Rollins, down the south coast here, sunny Spain, the gentleman responsible for my guest today, actually. I'll say thank you again to Andy. And as I mentioned my guest, I reckon I should bring her along. Be gentle with her. She said to me today she's feeling a little nervous and we need to ease her in gently. So I press my button and say hi and good evening all the way down on the south coast to Natalie. How are you, my friend? How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. I always have a little bit of a tentative start to the stream because I'm always conscious that my little gadgets aren't going to work. I'm always conscious that Zoom's going to pack up on me before I get to come to speak to you, and all other kind of nonsense that can go wrong that we spend hours finessing earlier on in the day. But it all looks to be fine. So thank you for being here. As you would have heard me say, I do like to make these chats as what is the word? See, my brain's gone absolutely blank already. I like to make the conversations as interactive as possible. So anytime there's a break in our conversation, I'll say hello to the people. Their comments come up on the screen in front of me. So I say hi to Luby and hi to Diana. Thank you for being here, ladies. So on the screen, it says Natalie Costa.
Ah,
Please introduce yourself. I've got a couple of questions that I'll let you answer in your own time. My questions to you are, who is Natalie? Where is Natalie? And what does Natalie do? So the floor is yours.
interesting question. Who is Natalie? Well, that changes on a day-to-day basis. But I'm a trauma therapist, so I work somatically with the mind and body in allowing the story that the body holds to speak, normally through a navigation back to the inner child, not the inner child in the work. And in doing so, tapping into what can be like a stagnant energy of trauma held in the body that the person's aware of. So that's what I do. I'm a mum, two little ones. I'm a work in progress for sure, and I'm based in Mijas Costa.
Okay. Well, we're all a work in progress. I think that's a given. So I'm trying to see if I can get your mic a little bit louder because you're a little bit quiet. If you can maybe project a little bit more for me.
I'll speak a bit louder.
Yeah, just a little bit,
Yeah, is
just
that
to make.
helpful? Is that better?
Yeah, I don't know why it's.
I've got an old Mac. Maybe it's my end.
Nah, just shout, just scream at me.
That's out. No problem.
Okay, so you're down in Mijas, which
Yeah,
is Costa del Sol.
del Sol, yeah,
Okay,
beautiful.
you've been there a few years now.
Yeah, so I arrived in Spain about 4 years ago, and I've lived in a few different places over Benevis area, and I moved to this area because, to be honest, I was a little stale in Benevis. It wasn't really the right place for me. I needed to be around different energy. I needed to just, just experience more, and that's what's happening. So I'm down in the Campo, in my new place, meeting a whole new node of amazing people, and just experiencing new stuff and bringing my trauma work down here now, and I think it's awesome.
Okay, so how did you get to this point in your life where you believed that was what you wanted to do?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, where do we begin? Okay, so I think from a very, very young age, I felt quite different to other people. I felt like it was really hard for me to fit in and to engage with people socially. And I think with my family dynamic, I attached a meaning to who I was as a person, and that really kind of affected the way I was living my life. So I was always looking for answers, and I was always trying to figure stuff out whilst battling, with a sense of there's something wrong with me. Um, and as that kind of progressed in my life, I realized I was really good at being there for my friends. I know I heard in some of your previous broadcasts about how people get in toxic relationships and they end up being there for their friends. And, that can be helpful, but quite unhelpful for you. But that was kind of something that, kept evolving in my life. And it just went into my line of work. I just thought, you know what, I want to learn more about what causes pain in myself and in other people. But I never really found the answers. I did a master's in psychotherapy. I worked in the NHS for about 10 years within lots of different modalities, but nothing really resonated until about 3 years ago. It was a real buzzword, I think, trauma, trauma, trauma. Maybe it was just because I was noticing it, but it resonated with me and I learned more about it. And it was the one thing out of everything that I've experienced as an intervention and as an understanding of myself and in other people that I felt really, really clicked. It really brought me home to the healing. So that's where I've ended up because I believe in it 100%. It for me, the mind body and letting the body speak is just amazing. It's
Okay, so in layman's terms, then trauma can manifest itself. Not manifest. That's the word that you want to use. Trauma can present itself in many different ways. It can be perceived in many different ways. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, what I believe trauma was before I kind of looked into it more was that it's an event that is traumatic, and you have a response to that. But that's not the case at all. A trauma is not the event. So whether you could have two people, for example, that are in the same car crash, horrible, but it could happen, right? And one person could be traumatized from it and the other isn't. And the reason for that, it's about the internal response and the meaning that you attach to the external event. But what certain people have are predispositions for that vulnerability. And then when you ask them, more often than not, well, who did you talk to about that? The answer is usually no one. And that reveals a whole kind of spectrum of why and the events leading up to it within their family dynamic and their internal world and the meaning they have about themselves and life in general that puts them in that vulnerable position to be traumatized. And how that manifests is a limitation on how they can connect to their whole self because you cut off parts of yourself to avoid pain and suffering. And then in doing so, it limits their experience of life as a whole.
Wow. So, do you ever find yourself having conversations, or have you ever found yourself having conversations with people, and the language that they use automatically sets off a trigger for you to say, to ask questions, to understand what something has happened to them?
Sure. And it triggers me as well. And it's a really important part of being a trauma therapist in my training with Gabor. is to really acknowledge when I'm triggered, because I have loads. Because that's, you ask me, why am I here where I am? Well, because I've had trauma, because I
Okay,
get
let me stop you there. Sorry, you mentioned Gabor as if I'm meant to know what that is. So forgive me. Treat me as the ignorant fool that's done zero research that I am, and please explain what that is.
Dr. Gabor Mate.
Okay.
Um, he's a Canadian physician that really brought trauma into global awareness. He was working a lot with people that were struggling with addictions. Yeah. And whilst he was administering, how can I even say it, giving people medication, he really disagreed with westernized kind of intervention, because what that does, it wants to take away the pain immediately, and it doesn't explore the root of the cause. And what he did, he developed his own method called compassionate inquiry, which he doesn't get, like, he doesn't even understand how it's structured, but it worked, and it was a mind body connection. So someone can come into like a therapy room and think that they have an intention. I want to talk about this. This is what's on my mind. But if you're grounded and you take away what the ego wants to say and what the mind is demanding of you, and you go inside the body, something completely different can come up, and you don't expect it. And that's when you tap into the subconscious and the unconscious and the root causes of the trauma. But he had no idea what he was doing. Like, he did, but he didn't know how to kind of package it. So a Kundalini teacher came along and said, I know how to do this, and I know how to train people, and we need to get this out there for, global healing. And he's amazing. He's absolutely amazing. And that's my teacher.
Wow, that's deep. Well, you had said to me earlier, let me turn my headphones down now. You had said to me earlier about us possibly doing something like that. I'm
Yeah.
scared. I don't want to do it now. I'm
And
definitely not. I'm not having you expose me live on air.
really, where does that resistance feel in the body right now, Andy? What are you noticing?
Oh, there's way too many skeletons in my closet to be exposed on air.
Well, another time maybe, or maybe later on, maybe you'll feel like it.
Okay, okay. So, how can we discuss this to our friends watching? And I'll say hi again to Stu, hi to Jane, and anyone else that's with us. Please say hi in the comments so I can say hello to you. How can we discuss this in a way that can be helpful to the people who may have issues, if that's the right word, may have suffered trauma and they don't know how to move on past it or address it head on?
I think one of the key things to consider, if you're someone that is feeling like they've been through trauma or there's something up, is that listen to your gut. Your gut will always tell you the truth. And also, the worst thing you can do is, if you are suffering and you're in pain, is to try and avoid it. Because the thing about pain and suffering is that it's always temporary. Always. Your mind may think it's not, and it may feel horrible and unbearable at the time. The biggest, most simplest lesson that I got off Gabor, and also a little bit, I'm also a yoga teacher, so a little bit of that too, is that when you surrender completely to the pain and you get amongst it, that's when the relief will come, and it happens pretty quickly. And you can have a conversation with it.
hmm
If you
So
try
it
and,
is a cliche, but if it's the right cliche, the truth will set you free, so to speak. It's very liberating.
that's exactly it. Exactly it. But in connecting to the truth, you've got to connect to the whole self, because what happens is that when you are experiencing trauma or pain or suffering, your body will build up and your mind will build up defense mechanisms, and it will actually repress or depress. So when you hear about depression, that's what it is. It's a depression of your whole self in order to avoid pain. But in doing so, you can't live your life authentically and within the whole self. So you end up, you know, so this is where all sorts of things can manifest. And manifestations, addictions, ADHD, which I have, codependency, depression, anxiety. There's other things that can appear in the body as well, various ailments. A lot of the people that I work with, they hold a lot of anxiety in their stomach and in their throat. And for me, my throat would constrict because I was brought up hearing children as seen and not heard. And I only figured it out about a month ago. Oh my God, that's why if I get anxious, my throat closes because I'm not supposed to be talking. That was my childhood mantra. But I think it's about, just knowing that pain is always temporary and
Hmm.
that healing, the word healing really means connecting to the whole self.
Fantastic, fantastic. I put out the call for people to comment and say hi. So I want to welcome along my wife, Michelle, also Denise, Mr. Rollings, Dev, and Diana is listening intently, and she says, absolutely. We have one or two people who will relate to what you're saying. They also work in therapy and life coaches and so on and so forth. So we have got a lot of people listening very carefully, and a lot of people who will be looking for answers as well.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about addiction as well. That must be um, one of the largest, one of the biggest factors around maybe at the moment that people deal with because of the back end of the trauma, how they deal with it. And as you say, different people deal with different circumstances in different ways. How do people begin to seek the assistance of someone like yourself?
Well, I think, it's about acknowledging that you want change in your life, that you've had enough. You've just had enough. You don't want to live your life anymore like this because it's just there's something inside you that's calling for a connection to your true, whole, authentic self. There's a part of you that does know, and that part of you that talks to you that is giving you that suffering is actually your biggest teacher. So if I mean, I am a true believer that if you put it out there, and this is kind of like my more kind of woo-woo yoga stuff, but I really believe that the universe will give you the answers and help you if you ask for it.
Hmm.
So if you've got that intention of finding the right pathway, you may have to come across a few people that aren't that great. I've had a few therapists that were fantastic, but they didn't get to my root stuff. They didn't. And I think that's because I deliberately avoided it. I deliberately navigated my way, around it and avoided it and distracted them completely. But you'll know when you find the right person. You just will, because you'll start to feel shifts.
Hmm. And so, listening to the language that you use, being very open-minded myself, I can see how it could come across to some people as, I mean, it's all just words, isn't it? But spiritual hippie nonsense. 20 years ago, this would be classed as hippie nonsense, right? Would you say that's a fair comment to say? By the wrong people listening to that and they just brush it off, the bloke in the pub kind of thing.
I think 20 years ago, trauma was more associated with physical trauma. I think there's a greater awareness now of what goes on a subconscious and unconscious level because collectively we have experienced trauma more, obviously with what was happening with COVID, but just everything, everything that goes on, and we're just more aware. We are more aware as a generation, I think. So we're more open to different things. Come on, like my parents were very much just suck it up and get on with life. There was no time to really delve into the inner workings of the mind and the unconscious. And Freud opened up that whole avenue of the unconscious, and he was the real originator of the unconscious. When was he around? I don't know, like 80 years ago or something. And so I think it's been an evolution of awareness, to be honest.
Hmm.
Mm.
With regards to the therapy that is received across the different practices, is that the word I'm looking for? There are different treatments. I suppose there could be different approaches to the same issue somebody has.
Yeah,
Do,
sure.
you must be a big advocator of what you practice, but do all the different um, I don't know. I'm not getting my words across very well. The different kind of people who treat these issues, is are different experts better situated to handle different situations, or can you all address certain people? I think I got my point across there. This is a
I've got
rubbish question. Forgive me.
not a rubbish question. It's actually a really interesting one because I'll tell you something. So I told you I've got attention deficit disorder, right? I worked in a clinic, and I'm not slagging off the NHS, I'm not slagging off anyone, but it's just interesting about what people's perceptions are and attunements are, right? In 10 years that I worked with psychiatrists, psychologists, whoever, not one person picked up on my ADD, and they worked very, very closely with me. So I think that, unfortunately, in some situations, the medical profession is a business, and they have to get people in and out quickly in order to receive funding. So there are certain modalities that they use which are seen to be able to do that within a certain time frame, like a 6 week turnaround, yeah, that are really effective in some instances and less effective in others. It really just depends on the person. So you've got cognitive behavioral therapy, which looks at the thought, the feeling, and then the behavior. Yeah, you have to forgive me if I get this slightly wrong because it's not my expertise. Then you've got the psychotherapy, which is a longer term intervention, which looks at the unconscious beliefs according to the attachments within the family. So it's all started off with the relationship with mum. It's if that trauma was created there because you felt neglected or abandoned, you felt unworthy, yada yada yada. I think definitely different modalities can help, but from my personal experience, it's the mind body, because what happens is that the body keeps score, and it does hold the truth. It really does.
Hmm. Okay, well, we're getting some great questions in from the people who are watching. Good evening, Katie. Nice to have you here. Let me read this carefully. Really interesting. Katie asks, I am curious on how trauma is defined. Is this okay? I'm curious on how trauma is defined. Is this most often through it being manifested?
Oh, that's interesting. Um, can she be a bit more like, can I understand more what she means about defining it
Okay,
through?
so Katie, please rephrase your question. Lou says, I think a lot of us are in denial, perhaps with certain situations that have affected us. And like you say, it will manifest in many ways if we avoid getting help. And then Denise asks a question. It would be great, Natalie, if you could share your thoughts on resulting behavioral patterns like avoidance or aversion.
Okay, well, anything that is not allowing you to connect to the pain and suffering is a resulting it results from your protective parts, in part. So what happens is that when you're younger and you experience something that is traumatic, and that's the meaning that you attach to it, that you're not heard, that you've got no one to talk to, a part of you actually becomes frozen as an infant or as a child, and it forms a protector part. And so, what it does as you grow up, it doesn't change chronologically or developmentally as you do. So, really, what you've got is a part of the self that's frozen within the trauma that happened before, but that is still trying to protect you and serve your best interest. But it doesn't always work in doing so. So when you avoid things, or other manifestations of that could be addictions, eating disorders, something, yeah. The key to kind of working with that is acknowledging that part of yourself that's serving to protect you, and maybe when you have that dialogue with a therapist, then you can ask them to, release the reins somewhat, but give them compassion and empathy, and thank them for the job that they're trying to do in protecting you.
Wow. I think of people that I know who have suffered trauma in their lives, and not aware that they have this infant, so to speak, trapped within them, that has affected them throughout their lives. And I'm really always fascinated how, as I was saying to you, you could be having a conversation with somebody at a brunch or whatever it is, the fantastic things you do down there, to see something within somebody, and ask them, have you suffered this in the past or whatever. That's the kind of thing that fascinates me, because
Yeah,
sometimes you just won't know that that's there. Does that make sense?
yeah, for sure. And your inner child is always present, whether or not it was traumatized or not. We never
Hmm.
lose our inner child. It's always alive and active within us 100%.
That
And it's,
definitely explains a lot of my behaviour a lot of the time.
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Um, yeah, it's just a really fundamental part of who we are, and it's there kind of to be playful. It can be sad. I notice my inner child coming up when I get a heaviness, because my childhood was what was quite sad in parts, which is part of my journey and part of my story. And I always know when she comes up because it's like a heaviness just kind of takes over me, and I can become a little bit, withdrawn, a little bit sulky. And it's only really through the recent work that I'm able to differentiate between the adult me and the inner child me.
Okay, and so when she emerges, do you have to sort of prepare yourself, buckle up, and just wait for it to pass, or are there practices that you do to be able to deal with that?
I think it's compassion. Oh, here you are. It's okay. Yeah, so when you breathe into it and you just give it some space or give her some space, I think I just go quite quiet and just let her be, know that she's there for whatever reason. I mean, I do have triggers for sure that she will come up that are always based on a potential rejection or a fear. Yeah, a fear of something. And then just being present with her and just being compassionate, and then it's almost like you give her a bit of a hug, and then she kind of just calms down, and I can think from a more adult perspective.
Why? I do regular walks along the beach, and I talk to a lot of the people who are watching today. Just I see it as a bit of therapy myself. Walk along the beach, going live, sharing the sounds of the beach with my friends who are landlocked back in the UK, talking about whatever. And every now and again, I will say, I haven't really been myself this week. I've been a little bit under the weather, but I understand it's something that just comes over me every now and again, and I accept that it's there and I deal with it. So that's when that comes along again, you're gonna make me stop and think, nah, and go deeper.
Is that something you think is an inner child thing, or is it something else though?
I've no idea. I've no idea, and I'm not letting you inside my head.
It's like
No, maybe we will. Let me just go back to a few more of these comments. Sue asks, "Hi Natalie, does the work you do differ from EMD, and if so, how?"
I don't really know too much about EMD, so yes,
Can
it
you
does.
tell me what EMD is, please? You, Natalie.
Me?
Yes.
No, I don't really
You
know.
don't
I
know what
don't
it stands for.
know. No, no.
Okay.
No,
Well,
I've heard of it, but it's not something I'm trained in.
okay, well that's an easy answer then. Lou says it shapes our values in our lives and our emotional needs in relationships. I would assume she's talking about the inner child. And Diana makes a comment. Thank you for the essential work you are doing. An excellent book I have recently read is What Happened to You. You have to forgive me. Part of my comments are cut off. Let me press this. See if I can read this here.
Happened to you or something, isn't it?
I can read it here on a
Yeah.
different screen. Hopefully, you can still see me. Uh, con- what happened to you? Conversations on trauma, resilience, and healing, and that's from Oprah Winfrey and Bruce Perry. And it may help some of the individuals you are supporting. So thank you for that, Diana.
Thank
And then someone says, okay, so tell me then. Tell me if you want to talk to me about what was it that you suggested you wanted to do with me?
Are you sure?
No, but
Because you seem
I'm curious enough to ask.
there's all this resistance. Well, I said to you, do you want to do a demo on the compassionate inquiry method that I'm trained with Gabor? And you said, ask me later and I'll see how I feel. And you keep bringing it up, so I think you want to do it.
Well, part of me would like to do it for the benefit of everyone watching, and
Okay.
then there is a resistance that I'm gonna start crying on air and I don't know, start telling everyone about
You know what we
something
could
I
do?
don't even know about. Come on.
What we could do, because only because you want to, is we can just do like maybe like 10-15 minutes just to show how the process is, but we'll go really gently, and you're in complete control of it, 100%.
Okay, let's do it. Good evening, John. by the way. John Rogers with us. Okay, so here we go. If anyone's just recently passing through, Natalie is about to get inside my head.
Oh,
This is like the scene off. What is it? Get Out. I'm holding onto the chair for dear life. No, come on. I'm relaxed. I'm all yours. I'm all yours.
really relaxed. No, I'm not going to get inside your head. You're going to get inside your body.
Okay.
Yeah?
Right.
Okay. All right. So just remember you're in complete control. You can stop this at any time. I don't have an agenda at all. This isn't about my intention. This is about just exploring what is present within you, within your boundaries. Yeah. So should we start off with a grounding? It's a good place to start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have to have my eyes closed or not pay any attention to what's going on or anything like that?
Just through it. Are you comfortable closing the eyes?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Here we go, everyone.
All right, cool. So closing the eyes and just settling into the body, connecting to the natural flow of the breath without changing anything, just really being aware of where the breath is traveling to in and out of the body. And noticing that where the breath travels to, if there are any areas of awareness or tension in the body, and knowing that everything is welcome. This is a safe place
I
for.
can't relax.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm scared already.
Yeah, that's fine. Laughter is a really, really good thing. It's a bit of an avoidance technique, but that's fine. Do you want to continue? Do you want to work with it, or
No,
yeah?
we'll carry on. I'm just conscious because my headphones are really loud that I'm breathing really heavily into the microphone.
All right. Well,
So,
all we need to do is just take you out of the mind and just notice what's happening in the body. Yeah.
okay,
And
I'm
if
going to lean away from the microphone so I'm not breathing into the mic. Okay.
okay, all right. So let's bring that awareness back into the body. Let's do a body scan. So taking the attention to the crown of the head, and then just moving that awareness down to the third eye, and then the back of the head. The awareness in the jaw, the neck, the throat, into the shoulders, down the arms, into the fingers, down the front of the body, the back, the spinal column, into the stomach area, into the hips, the thighs, the knees, the calves, the shins, the ankles, the soles of the feet, and into the toes. And feel the soles of the feet pressing into the earth and connecting to that grounding energy that's below you. And just being present for a few breaths with what is in the body. We'll take a few more breaths, just being present with what is. And when you're ready, just blinking open the eyes, bringing the awareness back to the room. So, did anything come up for you then? Did you notice anything in the body, or did anything come up for you?
Not really. I think I'm too conscious of uh, having eyes on me, and it's quite intrusive how loud the I can hear my breathing in the headphones.
Quite distracted.
If I'm honest.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So connecting to the body and what's going on in the body, is that something that feels unfamiliar to you?
And not really. No, I'd like to think I'm in tune with my body. Um, if I'm not well, if I stress myself when I go to the gym or something, I usually pick it up straight away.
Yeah. Okay. I think you're right. I think when you're being observed and we're in the kind of situation that we're in now, it doesn't necessarily feel like a safe space.
Mhm.
I can understand that completely. So there's no tension. It's all just pretty spacious within the body right now, and it's all pretty much still in the head. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay. I think that's really understandable. So what would usually happen in a therapy session in this way is that someone would notice something in their body.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for sure. Every time, 100%, 100%. So, and more often than not, it is either shoulders, throat, or stomach. And it's just then the process would be to give that some space and just allow it to be. And then some stuff will come up and it will start talking. That energy will start talking. And then it's
Wow.
amazing the way it can go.
And is this something that you can do? Um, like this satellite over Zoom, or is
Oh,
it
for
usually?
sure.
Yeah.
It's all done. It's all done over Zoom. I had a real issue with that. Like when I was part of the requirements for my training was that I was to see a therapist, and I thought, how am I going to engage with someone? How's that person going to attune to me through the screen? Actually, it works all right. I think
Hmm.
it's fine. It's okay. And actually, in a way, you can be more comfortable in your own surroundings anyway, I think. I mean, how
Hmm.
did you find it? I mean, aside from the fact that people are watching you and it's a bit of a weird experience, I mean, did you
I,
feel
uh, I'm very transparent. I was way too conscious of um, drifting off while I was live on air. I was too conscious of. It's going to sound ridiculous, but it's just the truth. I was too conscious of sitting here and my stomach start rumbling. I was
really?
too because it's happened to me a few times live on air. So I wasn't. I was as far from relaxed as you could possibly be.
Didn't actually want to engage with what was going on with the body because sometimes that can give you anxiety if you're presenting, like the stomach rumbling. I've had that before many a times, or like heartburn or something.
Mhm. No, it's just
Yeah.
because I eat too soon to when I do the stream, and because, as I say, this microphone is really, really sensitive, and so that's always in the back of my mind. But thank you for attempting. I'm sorry for being a useless subject.
No, not at all.
Uh, Louis saying we can't you breathing, and my wife said she actually did it and she felt the tight throat.
What did she?
Yeah, so maybe I'll hook you up with Michelle, and you and her can do a one-on-one
That'd be
session.
awesome. That'd be
So let's I'll say hi to Sarah watching as well. I hope you're feeling better. Our good friend Sarah is not 100% in the body at the moment, so we send well wishes in your direction. So coming back to the question that Katie asked earlier,
yeah.
she says, I support people with overeating and clients of self-sabotage. Sorry, I'm terrible at reading. I support people with overeating and clients of self-sabotage their weight loss. Wondering when to know when it's linked to trauma.
Do you know, it's a really interesting question. Obviously, anything to do with kind of eating disorders and it's a very complex conversation. But I'll give an example without kind of breaking confidentiality. I had a client who was concerned about their eating, yeah, and actually, when we got to the root of what was happening in the body, so in this person's body, there was a lot of stress and tension in her shoulders and neck. So the story was told, I feel guilty when I binge, yeah. But what came out from the body was disappointment, guilt, and so disappointment in themselves, guilt, and shame. And that went back through the navigation of what the body was saying in the inner child work to stuff when this person was at school and not pleasing their mother. So actually, it was nothing about the food and everything to do with the relationship with the mother that was kind of transferring itself onto, so the familiarity of the disappointment, guilt, and shame was being triggered with the eating, but the root cause of it was something completely different. And I
Okay.
think it's different with every single person. It's just about navigating that and finding out. And as, if that person sees it as a problem, I mean, what function is it giving that person? What relief are they getting from it? But how's that limiting themselves in their life? Is it causing them pain? Is it causing them suffering? Is it something they want to change? And why can't they? Because the thing with addiction is that you have a craving, you have temporary relief, you have the destructiveness that it brings into your life, and then you have the inability to stop it.
Wow. It's listening to that, your particular case study, so to speak. You would never put those two cause and effect together, would you really?
And that's the thing. You can never make assumptions about, because this is the thing. I could go into a session and think, oh, I want to talk about, I don't know, anything, right? But this is the real kind of treasure of the work, and it happens every time. What that person thinks their intention is, or their actual manifesting, or what they see as their problem, their difficulty, it's so much more than that. And actually, it's not. It's caused by something completely different. And I guess that is a manifestation of trauma, and that's
Wow.
why it needs to be unpacked, and that's why it's held within the subconscious and the unconscious. That's why the body work is so important, because the body doesn't really have an agenda. Like the brain will believe anything you tell it, as long as you didn't die from doing it the day before. It's quite happy to have these destructive patterns of behavior. It's quite happy because it has no discrimination, and it doesn't like what is unfamiliar. The brain always goes with what is familiar, even if it's not good for you. Its main objective is to keep you alive, but it doesn't always know the best way to do that. Yeah. So, what the brain thinks might be an issue, the body knows better, and the unconscious holds the truth.
Wow. Let me ask it may be a related question. It may be completely unrelated. Something that I thought of the other day, and I know there are several answers to this, but why is it that things that we enjoy the most tend to be the worst for us? Food and addiction, whatever it may be, drink and drugs, different types of food. The foods that people enjoy the most tend to be the most detrimental to our health.
I think, from my own experience, it depends why you're doing it. Are you doing it? It's not like, you want to go out for Chinese and you know it's horrible for you, whatever, but you enjoy it, and that's fine because you're doing it as something every so often. Why? What is the cause to having at the alcohol, or doing some coke, or taking pills, or whatever you want to do? Go and have sex with loads of people, go gambling, go shopping, whatever it is. Why do you want to do it? Is it an avoidance? Is it because you're looking for temporary relief from pain and suffering? Or is it just something you want to do, and then you can be like, right, that was fun, and I can move away from that? So I think it really just does depend on why you're doing it, and it's different for different people. Some people can, do all these things as every so often, and they don't become addicted, and it's not a problem, and it doesn't affect their life. But someone like me, for example, has to be very careful with the things that I choose to do in my life, because I have a predisposition for an addictive personality because of my past, and my ADHD as well makes me impulsive, and
Hmm.
I'm emotionally dysregulated. So I, have to be very, very careful with what I choose to do, whereas someone else might not.
Well, can we peel back the layers a little bit? You mentioned about the ADHD, if you don't mind, because I think there is definitely a comfort that many people take from hearing about someone like yourself, very knowledgeable and very clearly very successful in what you're doing, who also has their own battles to deal with. So tell us about your what is the word I'm looking for, when you your diagnosis, if that's the right word, and your journey.
Okay. So when I was growing up, as I mentioned before, like it wasn't that easy for me. I felt like I didn't really fit in, and I always felt like there was something wrong with me, you know? And I always felt as though I was looking at the world through almost like a TV set. Do you know what I mean? Like I didn't feel engaged. I wasn't really connected and grounded.
Mhm.
So I created, as a defense for that, my own world, which involved an imaginary world where I was super happy and I had friends around me, and that was safe. That was a safe place for me to be in, right? But as I got older, that's obviously a bit of a problem because, you can't walk around pretending you're Madonna singing like a virgin in front of whatever, when you're 14 years old. So you have to kind of think of different ways of coping with the things that make you feel very unhappy, yeah, and lost and yeah, just really sad. So, I got into drink, I got into, recreational drug use, and, definitely got myself involved in situations that I shouldn't have done, 100% that have created traumas in my life. So I did a lot of work on myself, but nothing really healed me. I still felt very disconnected from who I was. And I kind of felt like a lot of people would say to me, even my family, God, you're so up and down. I'd walk down the street sometimes and people would say, cheer up, love, it might never happen. And I'm like, really?
Just strangers stopping you in the
Actually,
street.
it's reinforcing my whole sense of like everything that's wrong with me. Yeah. And I would notice that though. I would notice my mood would shift. So one minute I'd feel elated, the next minute I'd feel really shit. And I'm a real procrastinator, and that gives me loads of anxiety because I I'm so excited about new projects. Yeah, I love it. I'm like, yeah, let's do this, let's do that. And then I'm bored within 5 minutes and start something else. Or I'll forget to do something and I'm losing stuff all the time. And boundaries are a nightmare, absolute nightmare, coupled with codependency as well. Oh my God.
Oh
So all
dear, oh
this,
dear.
no, I'm a mess. I shouldn't. Yeah, but the thing is that I realised I actually worked it out for myself in the same way that Gabor did. He was like, "There's something not right here." And like I said, I worked with a load of professionals for 10 years and not one person picked up on the fact of my ADD. And I actually went to seek someone out a few years ago in Spain who has very strong ADHD himself, so could really understand.
So, what is, forgive my ignorance again, ADHD and ADD? Is it the same thing or?
It's very similar. It's just without the hyperactivity component.
Okay.
Um, so mine is tuning out and disassociation, as well as the emotional dysregulation and the kind of procrastination and the inability to finish things. And what happens with that is that you internalize a sense of failure in your life because you never get anything done. But I just knew something was wrong, and so he confirmed what I pretty much figured out for myself, and it was a relief. It was a relief to know because you can't help it. You really can't. And it's actually, for me, I don't believe that anyone should have a diagnosis, but for me, I was at the point in my life where I thought I need it because I don't want to feel hopeless. I want to feel that there's something really concrete behind this. And then when I understand it and I learn about it, you can learn about the beauty of having it as well.
Right. Okay. And that allows you to spot other people with the similar traits at the same time and offer them advice.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I still have a lot to learn about, ADD, because the thing is, it does put you on a bit of a roller
So
coaster. Yeah,
ADD, attention deficit disorder.
definitely. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So it's it can be tough. It can be tough because what your brain does, it will. So let's say someone who doesn't have it is in a stressful situation, right? I don't always know. So let's put it on a scale from 0 to 10. So people might know whether they're a 5 or 6. I don't. I can just go bang because I don't have that awareness along the scale always. And so it's hard for me when I'm in that elevated state of stress to kind of preempt it in order to kind of stop it before it happens, and that can be very disorientating and stressful, and that's very common with people with this, because you just don't know. So your brain will interpret a stressful event as being something that happened connected to trauma in the past and put you back there. So your response becomes very elevated and intense. And that's why, people, because I wasn't hyper and I wasn't running around all over the place and looking for a relational container in people and things, which is what can happen with ADHD. So what they do is known as like the second skin. So you're unable to kind of hold yourself relationally. So you're unable to kind of comfort yourself. So you look around really quite hectically for other people and things and distractions to do it. And
Hence the
so,
codependency you were saying.
well, yeah, I mean, that's slightly different, but yeah, but the hyper element of the ADHD, people misinterpret that as kids being quite annoying and running around and not listening, but they're desperately seeking containment.
Okay.
Desperately, yeah. But I didn't do that. I just sat there and daydreamed and didn't pay attention, and that's what I always got in trouble for. But that was my way of disassociating myself from how I was feeling inside.
Okay. So as an adult, what are the treatments for that? Is it prescriptive or therapeutic, if that's the right word?
you know, Again, you can use medication, but what does the medication achieve? For some people, it gives them better concentration, it makes them more present. For some people, it can, really make them feel quite low in mood. It's not a pathway. I've explored it. It lasted about 5 days. It just didn't work for me at all. Maybe I didn't give it enough time. I didn't like it.
All right.
But yes, absolutely. I mean, I know people that do take medication and it's fantastic for them. Their sleep is incredible. They're much more present. They're able to do things creatively and be a lot more focused. But for me, I felt like a zombie and I didn't want to touch it.
All right. This all sounds very familiar to some work that my wife's been doing. She has a group and she talks to a hell of a lot of women who are perimenopausal. And so I hear background conversations that's going on and discussions that we've had on here. So as women get older as well, I guess that would also come into the equation as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think with hormonal changes as well, and just like a different sense of who we are as women and what society expects from us, there's a lot of kind of releasing, and surrendering and having to kind of just be present with what is, for sure.
Mm, definitely. Just reading through these comments. Um, Diana, sorry, there seems to be a bit of a delay. Diana says, let me see if I can read this comment. No one size fits all, although medication, if can be avoided, for the best. So either you guys aren't typing correct or I just can't read properly. No one size fits all, although medication, if can be avoided, is for the best. I think there's a word missing there. Right, I get that. So how are we getting on? How have my questions been addressed to you over the course of the 55 minutes or so that we've been talking? Do you think we've covered a lot of uh, the avenues regarding trauma? What I always ask people is the stepping stones, the first step in the right direction for people to come to you. Actually, before we go there, I've got a huge response here from my friend Stu, who's over in the Far East. He says, a huge thanks for the sincere and meaningful conversation so far. I hope it's okay to share my own example with a question at the end. So let me go across and read this properly, if I may. Approximately 25 years ago, as an early teenager, I experienced a period of extremely severe bullying lasting around 3 years. Bear with me, I've got to scroll up. I didn't tell anyone about it for many years, not wanting to worry my family in particular. In fact, my family still don't know, but a few close friends do. Okay, so I think that's clear so far. During the past 10ish years, I've really noticed a very delayed reaction, resulting in a significant build-up of anxiety and depression that's been ramping up year by year. Internally, I feel like this is absolutely linked to my teenage trauma. So my question is, do you have any advice for how to attempt to address this sort of delayed reaction from something that happened so long ago. So scrolling back up again, he says 25 years ago, as an early teenager, he experienced a period of extremely severe bullying.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that comes to my mind was that actually the trauma didn't occur then, it happened way before.
Really?
Because, yeah, because the reason that Stuart didn't speak about it really at the time was that there was already, sorry, I don't want to be presumptuous, but I would be curious to find this out, through the navigation work. But why were you at that point where you didn't want to discuss it, where you felt that there was no one that was going to hear you? And that would have happened way before the incident of bullying in the teenage years. And that would invite a conversation and awareness through the body and the inner child work of something that may have happened or may have been happening within the family dynamic on a regular basis without him being consciously aware of it, that made him vulnerable to that situation at the time when he was 13.
Wow. So that is the perfect opportunity that would have answered the question I was about to come on to. Where do you begin finding clients? How do you start to help clients? So, Stuart, when Natalie and I are finished talking, I will link you to her uh, direct Facebook profile and you guys can talk. So you have we I did mention at the top of the show, I sent out a call to my friends asking if they had anybody who they were aware of that would be a good guest on the show. And our mutual friend Andy Rollings put your name forward, and I immediately contacted you. So that was via your own profile. Do you have your own Facebook page? I know via our conversation you're in the process of updating the website, but yeah, so for people to contact you and where most of your work comes from and how you spend most of your time.
Okay, so yeah, through the Facebook page, which has my WhatsApp on there and direct message at the minute, which I am in the process of updating. Where I work is globally because we use Zoom, which is kind of the done thing right now. But if people do prefer face to face, and they're curious about what the work involves, always an introductory call, free of course to lay the land. I
Okay, so what I'll do is I didn't tag Natalie initially in this, but I will make sure to tag her when we come back. So you mentioned about the yoga as well.
Yeah.
You must have local classes that you do that classes of all ages, or again is does that work? What's the
Well,
word? I keep meaning to say satellite. It isn't satellite. What's the word? Online.
yeah, I guess so. I'm not sure now. How you've said that, would have been there. But it's like, yeah, I don't know. Online, I guess. Um, yeah. So I like to teach on the beach. My thing is about.
Don't we all?
I know, right? I like to connect to the energy. This is where I'm going to get a bit woo woo, but you have to bear with me. With the energy around me. Yeah. So, you said you were walking down the beach and it made you feel so much better.
Mhm.
Well, it's so healing being in that energy. You get all the prana, you get all the fresh energy, you're connecting to the vibration of the Mother Earth and the universe.
No, I'm all about grounding. I'm all about grounding.
So yeah, so I like to teach on the beach, but obviously, sandstorms are not really allowing that to happen right now. But I also teach embodiment classes, so it's so we get very tribal with our beats and we ground down and we don't think about what we're going to do in the movement. We close the eyes and just let the body move in the way that it wants to. And again, it's like it tells a story. It's nothing to do with the ego. It's nothing to do with what's the right or wrong thing. It's just totally liberating. And another really cool thing that we do is shaking. So if anyone is feeling a bit, oh, a really good thing to do is to shake the body. Start off with the hands, yeah, and then just shake it out in the body for like 5 or 10 minutes to your favorite song. I promise you, it will make you feel so much better because it gets rid of all the stagnant energy and really, really gets you going in a
I
good way.
I totally believe all of that. I'm on board with it, but it just immediately makes me picture kind of a Ricky Gervais sketch or something.
Fantastic! Isn't that perfect? Don't
Yeah.
we all love your face? Try it. You'll love it.
All
Give
right.
it a like.
shake it all out. Well, in a few weeks, actually, I'm gonna be talking to a therapist who uses music a hell of a lot. I'm not even gonna start to go into where that conversation is gonna go because she will put it across a lot better than I can. But it is actually absolutely fascinating. I did say when we began that you did say, I need to rein you in because you can go off on a tangent. But I think you've been very concise. You've been informative. You've been really, really good. Hold on. I've got issues with my screen, so I'm going to go to a couple more questions here. Diana says, apologies, I had to pull over to engage. A great conversation. Thank you, and Andy and Natalie. I will listen to the rest when I get home. Thank you, Diana. Diana is a recent fan of the page, well, for some time now, so it's truly appreciated. And Dev, I need to change my screen so I can read this. Dev, my good friend, says, if one wanted to learn more about Gabor, what would be his best resource that you would recommend? And that is obviously directed towards you, Natalie. So again, I think we need to put links in the comments, right?
Yeah, okay, for sure. So he has books, When the Body Keeps the Score. Um,
And just
uh,
confirm his full name again.
Let me hang on, I got it here. Sorry.
Okay.
When the body says no.
Okay, so that's
That,
Gabor Mate.
yeah, Mate, Dr. Gabor Mate, Mate.
Hmm.
Um, Scattered Minds is the book
Oh,
about.
right. So I've just realised Dev wasn't saying if I wanted to know more about Gabor Mate. He was actually saying if one wanted to know more about Gabor Mate. I'm absolutely useless at this.
But so, um, and his website is Compassionate Inquiry. So anything, his books, his website. There's actually a little course you can do for about €300, which teaches you, process a little bit and gives you more information about how to delve deeper.
Okay. So you mentioned money there. I know it's not something that people always discuss regarding their services because there is no one size fits all. But if someone was to looking into trauma therapy, are there set classes or time frames, or how does it work? What would somebody expect if they came to you? And I don't expect you to give a figure, but you generally, how would it work?
What if someone came to me for therapy, you mean?
Yes, they wanted trauma therapy. What's
Oh,
the kind of roadmap?
well, it's an hour. It's an
Okay,
hour, and I would never turn anyone away that was in need ever. Never, never, never. So finances is a conversation I'd have separately with each individual. Time frame. Okay, so I've been working with two people at the same time for 3 months, once a week, once a fortnight. They're both in completely different places. Yeah. And again, I think some of that is to do with resistance. Yeah. Some of them, one of them doesn't particularly want to lose the relational containing space that they have with me because that person is codependent. So that's a
okay.
tough thing. So it really just does depend. But you do get immediate insight and revelations within the first session. That could be enough for a person.
Wonderful. Well, I can hear the monsters have awoken in the background, right?
They are. The gremlins are awake.
So I quite happily sit here, fascinated to talk to you all evening. But I will allow you to tend to them. We
Thank you.
will make sure we link to your profile so people can contact you. You are inviting everyone to contact you, right?
Yeah, for sure, of course.
And I will be sure to bring you back on at some point in the future, and we'll have another discussion, maybe with another expert. And now we've broken the ice, so to speak. I'm sure we can. Maybe next time, I'll make sure it's been a while since I've eaten, and I'm not worried about my stomach rumbling, and I will feel more relaxed to allow myself to get into inside my body completely.
All right, good deal. Sounds good.
Wonderful. Natalie, thank you so much for your time. I'm just going to say goodbye to a few people. Thank you again to Andy for looking after the kids, and we'll talk soon.
All right, love. Take care. Thank
Okay,
you.
take care. Bye bye.
Bye.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that a hell of a lot. I hope you did too. You did too. Um, Thank you to people who are liking and sharing, as I can see on the screen, to Ross, to Dev, to Andy, to Stu. Natalie shared it as well. Jason Thornton liked the video. Hi, Jason, as did Nick Collins and Mr. John Rogers. I know a lot of people coming in and out of the stream and also picking us up again afterwards. Now, why does that keep happening? The next show, that should be showing. There it is. It's back on again. I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you to all of the people, all the logos you can see on the screen. My Access members, they're the people who support me on a monthly basis. They find value in what I do. And every month, they all go into a draw. Just this Sunday, just gone, I was more than happy to give someone £180 for their £10 subscription. If you want to know more about that, because I'm not here to hard sell it to you, but you may find it of interest, go to djandyward.net/access and have a look on how you can get your logo on the screen. Mark Wilkinson there, a big fan of everything that I do. My mate Andy Tomlinson at Certain Travel, so on and so forth. If you are at all interested, it's just £10 a month. £10 a month. And for that £10, you get stuck into a draw. You could win 180 quid. As well as a load of other things. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about my guest next Tuesday. I'm going to be joined by Mr. John Kumar and Bob Povey. Hopefully John's going to be with Bob. Bob Povey, 100% is going to be here. They're celebrating 30 years of Bump and Hustle. And as the graphic says, 30 years at the top of their game, in brackets mostly. I've spoken to Bob before, but they're getting ready for a big party down on the south coast, so I thought it only fair that we bring Bob on with his partner and some of the residents to talk about the fun they've had. Just have a bit of a chat on a Tuesday, as we like to. You can see on the graphic as well, if you try to type into the comment exclamation point notify, so exclamation mark, sorry, I've been watching too many American streamers, exclamation mark notify with no gap in the word. That should give you the option to get a notification every time we go live. It's very difficult getting into people's stream, getting into people's wall when we are live, but that's neither here nor there. Whether we have 10 people or 110 people watching us, it's always great to have your company, and I truly do appreciate it. I'm going to go back and see if there's been any more comments. Yes, there have. Let me read some of these. Michelle says, thank you. Stu Miller says, I now know how to pronounce Mate, mate. Michelle loved it. I'll definitely put you in touch with Natalie. Denise says, thanks for an interesting discussion. Thank you for being here from start to finish, my love. Stu, make sure you do talk to Natalie. And also John Rogers still here. He says a great conversation. It's really good to let people know that they have options and for help. And Lou says, thank you. Right, that is me done. Tuesday evening, I am going to go and let my stomach do all the rumbling that it needs. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love you loads. Take care of yourselves now. Ciao, ciao.